Hey everybody, my name is Robert Woods, founder of Banneret, the recruiting company for veterans, and you're listening to the Knight's Tale podcast, where we dig into the tips, tools, and tactics required for a successful transition out of the military. Thanks for listening. So I'm really fired up because I think our position in life is truly divine, honestly, even in terms of the people we don't meet, but especially in terms of the people we do meet, because in one way or another, we've all been put on this earth to interact with someone. And sometimes I think it's important for us to take a minute and listen to someone else's story, because sometimes we don't know what kind of value the next person we meet is going to bring to our lives. And Thomas Hood took time out of his day to talk to us in hopes to talk about his transition out of the military. And similar to the stories of some of our previous guests, Thomas Hood had a smooth transition, but it didn't come without a great deal of persistence, dedication, and really keeping his eyes on the prize. In our talk today, he really revealed some great gems of knowledge in this interview, and I'm happy that he was able to join us today. Everyone, here's our interview with Thomas Hood. Hey, everybody, we have a very special guest here, Thomas Hood. Thomas went to Penn State and became a U.S. Army officer. And so he was an officer in the Army for about 8 years and led some large teams from a military perspective. And following his separation, he worked for Uber as a military fellow, which sounds really cool. And so, Thomas, I'll let you fill in any gaps and let us know how your transition went.
Yep. Well, thanks, Robert. I appreciate it. Like you mentioned, I went to Penn State. Before that, I was an Army brat, which mainly meant that I followed my dad around. He was also in the Army for 26 years. So I've never lived anywhere very long. Yeah. Very used to moving. But graduated from Penn State, like you said, became an Army officer, became an armor officer, which mostly meant I dealt with vehicles, or vehicle formations, and spent 8 years in the Army. I wanted to be a commander, and I got that opportunity about 2 years ago, and was very happy with my career. Like you said, 8 years, and now I'm ready to move on to something to a greater challenge. As you mentioned, that Uber job. Just to clarify, it was less of a job, more of an internship. There's a great military program called the DoD Skill Bridge program, and the Army's version of that is called the Career CSP, career. Oh man, I'm blanking, but career service program. Look it up later. But it allows a transitioning military service member for the last few months of their career or their contract to intern at a company of their choice, so they can gain experience and then, with hope, potentially have a job offer at the end of that internship. So I was able to do that for 3 months. With Uber, and like you mentioned, it was an incredible experience. I decided not to interview for any job positions at Uber because a few other opportunities opened themselves up to me. But I learned a lot during that process.
That's awesome. So that's the Skill Bridge. Is that how you got linked up with Shift, or was it through the career service program?
So the Skill Bridge is the program that Shift uses in order to get us linked up with whatever company that we intern with. So I actually, a mentor of mine introduced me to Shift. And again, if you're looking for it, it's shift.org. Yep. And then through that organization, they led me through all the requirements and criteria that the DoD, as part of the DoD Skill Bridge, requires for you to be able to intern at a company. So
gotcha.
Shift made it very easy for me to, they introduced me to Uber, and I interviewed with Uber, and then eventually they took me on. But they were the ones who walked me through the process, because I'm as great as the program as it is. Unfortunately, it's not as you can imagine, not an easy process. There's a lot of checks I got to get in place. Right.
And so I had a question about the GI Bill thing. Do they include the GI Bill with the Skill Bridge program, or is that separate?
It's completely separate. So okay. I'm not really sure for other services, but at least for me, if you've served a certain number of years, you still get the GI Bill. Completely separate from this DoD Skill Bridge.
Oh, okay. All right. So can you paint a picture for us as far as like what things were like when you were getting out, what did it look like for you?
Yep. So I think overall I did have a pretty smooth transition. And I say that having not been, I'm still not fully employed right now, but I'm working on that process as we speak.
Right.
I'll get to that in a second. But part of the reason it probably was smooth is, I'm still single, and I was able to save up a bunch of money. So I don't have any dependents I have to worry about.
Gotcha.
I think it probably would be, a little more stressful if there's a mother or father who had to worry about feeding their kids. And so,
right.
That's part of the reason why it was a little easier. But another reason it was it was somewhat of a smooth transition is my leadership supported me throughout the entire process. And so I think about maybe a year ago, I fully committed to deciding I wanted to get out of the military, and I immediately engaged my leadership about that. And if you were not bad at your job, they'll try to convince you to stay in. They want the best people in the service. But eventually, luckily, my leadership was very supportive and gave me. I was still working, but gave me the time I needed to interview, go do some special transition programs, and then also to participate in this DoD Skill Bridge and internship with Uber. So I would say for anyone who wants to have a smooth transition, make sure you engage your leadership early. And I was fortunate. I will freely admit that there are a lot of military leaders out there who will not be as supportive as mine were. But if you engage them about that early, it just makes it gives you a greater chance of success. I was able to engage them about that. And like I said, participated in a bunch of transition programs and set a timeline for when I was going to start this internship with Uber. Right. And then they let me go when the time came. I started in January and I finished in March.
You kind of mentioned the importance of mentors in your life and your leadership. And I wanted to know, was there a catalyst in that, while you were transitioning? But it kind of sounds like it was like your leadership. Was it anybody else that you kind of leaned on? Was it like family or other veteran services organizations?
Yep. I mean, if I heard about something, I was using it. I also, I'm still learning about things. Great. I mean, there's a ton, just talking about transition programs for military. There's a ton of them out there. You just do a Google search with those keywords and you will find every company, most companies will have a military transition program, and there's a bunch of private organizations too that will help you go. But to your point, the other great catalyst was mentors. I probably didn't do this very well when I was younger, just, a young officer, but as I got older, it was impressed upon me by family members and friends that I should, even while in the Army, build a mentor network. Yeah. You never know what could happen. You get injured, something happens at work and you might have to find a job real quick. So I built, up to maybe 4 years ago, I started building those relationships and communicating with them regularly, just letting them know where I was, what I was thinking, staying in touch with old military bosses because they might get out and they might have some good advice for you. So like I said, the mentor is the one who introduced me to Shift, and that same mentor, along with a bunch of others, have introduced me to a ton of programs out there that they just happen to come across. And that, I think that's even more important to a successful transition than communicating with your leadership, is having a list of people, family, friends, or even strangers. There's this great program, you might have heard of it, called Veteran that links transition military in with already post-military, I'm not sure what the term, but post-military current, civilians who were in the military, and they work in a varying degree of industries across the world. And you just go on veteran.com and they will link you in. These people volunteer their time to mentor transition military service members, and they'll give them advice on what to do, who to talk to, what certificates or degrees they should probably have in order to work in whatever industry they might work in. And so stuff like that, along with family and friends, was instrumental to me getting the opportunities I currently have.
Right. And that's Veterati. How do you spell Veterati?
Let me see if I got this right. VETERATI. ATI.com.
That's.
If I have my computer in front of me, look it up. But yeah, all you do is you sign up, and they ask you what kind of industries you're interested in, and they send me an email weekly with recommendations for mentors that I can schedule a call with, and then have a conversation, up to an hour.
That's incredible. That sounds kind of like ACP, but just a little different.
It's exactly right, except that they focus on military, because these people, they've also been former military, or they're former military spouses too. They let them into the network. So anyone who's a husband or wife of a military member can also use this service, and they have volunteers there who have similar backgrounds. But yeah, I'm not sure how old it is. I only heard about it maybe 9 months ago, but I've talked to some great people, and then those people always know more people who I can talk to.
Right.
And,
do you have a system for like how you follow up with those people or things like that? Like put them in a spreadsheet or something like that?
Yeah, exactly right. It's an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And so then an Excel spreadsheet, it's their contact information, and it's the last time I talked to them.
Mm-hmm.
Then every, I think in general, depending upon how close I am with that person, every 2 to 3 months, I might send them an email or ask to have a phone call. Just to follow up, let them know where I'm at, and then they'll typically respond with their advice on what they think I should do. But yeah, Excel spreadsheet, that's the go-to for me.
What do you think about, like what would you say to somebody who kind of feels like they have it all figured out, in terms of, I have a good network. I mean, I'm cool with everybody. What would you say to that? Do you think that's like a bad frame of mind to have, or, how do you see that?
I mean, I think if you're confident in your network, that's a great, but you can never, having a conversation is free. So you can never have enough conversations with people.
Yep.
And just speaking to my own, I probably over the last year or two have thought that I wanted to go into a certain, like 7 or 8 different industries, cybersecurity, IT, consultancy, tech world, startup. I thought I wanted to do it all. And through talking with these mentors and then participating in different programs, I was able to determine, I was not interested in that industry.
Yeah.
To your point, I think you can never talk to enough people, and someone will always be able to offer a different perspective.
Right.
And sorry about that.
Oh, no problem at all.
Yeah. So I would say, please talk to as many people as possible. And then, and for me, like, I'll tell you, so one story behind that is I've never thought of being a lawyer. I have no friends or family who are lawyers or work in the legal profession. But out of the blue, someone popped up on my Veterati email feed who is a lawyer and was former military. And so I thought, well, this is someone who's from a completely different walk of life than me. I'll give them a call, or I'll ask to have a call with them and just see what their thoughts are on what I'm going through. And that was probably one of the better conversations I had. I'm still not sure I want to be a lawyer. There's a lot of work and a lot of schooling that goes into that.
Yeah.
But it was very beneficial. So I encourage people to keep expanding your network, and because you never know when someone will say, "Hey, I know so-and-so, and he has military experience of such," and this opportunity just opened up. So let me give him a call and see if he's interested.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what'd you end up narrowing it down to? You said legal, and what are some other career fields you're thinking about?
Well, this month, we'll see what happens next month. But this month so right now I'm currently in the middle of interviews with a certain consulting firms.
Gotcha.
And that's what I think I want to do, mostly because management consulting, to be specific, but mostly because that they provide you have the potential to work in a bunch of different industries as a consultant, or work with people who work in those industries. And so I figured if I want to find out what I want to do with the rest of my life, that'd be a great way to experience a bunch of different industries and people and companies if I work in a consultant firm. So I'm in the middle of the interview with them. The other you bring up another piece of advice I like to give is make sure you start, if you think you're going to get out, start interviewing and talking with mentors and companies as far out as possible, because for me, what I didn't realize when I started talking with these companies is that they have rotating recruitment. I might not be using the right term, but recruitment periods or interview periods. So, and they're months long. So I interviewed with a few of these places before I got out of the Army, kind of hoping I was going to be able to start in 2 months. And, it looks like more now it's probably going to be 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months before, if I get through these interviews and accept it, can even start. So it's never too early to start communicating with certain companies.
Yeah. Because I've noticed some companies, I mean, of course, the bigger ones have really large, or I would say robust talent pool or talent acquisition strategies. Like I know Deloitte has their they have like a veteran program. It's kind of have you experienced that yet? Like the Deloitte?
I have. Yeah. I mean, Deloitte's one of a lot of the consultant firms are very military friendly. Deloitte, at least from my viewpoint, has advertised how friendly they are to transition military and former military service members as potential future Deloitte employees much more heavily. Maybe this is what the point you were getting to, but Deloitte has an awesome program, again, another military transition program called CORE, CORE.
Yep.
I participated in that about 9 months ago, and that was also awesome. But yes, the Deloitte, a lot of the companies have very robust, you're going through 4, 5, 6 interviews, and they take some time. And they also have, I think if anyone's interested in a company, go on that site or go on Google, type in that company's name and type in veteran or type in, veteran transition program. And you'll see that they'll have their own they'll have their own site that's specifically geared towards veterans.
Right. And so when you were going through CORE, did you meet Michael Bernard? I
did. Yeah. I did. Exactly. I'm sure he doesn't remember me among everyone else, but yeah, I did. He was great.
Yeah, he really was. I mean, the way he led those classes, it was just it was incredible.
It was. I mean, the military, I'm sure has their own transition program, at least for the Army, it's called Soldier for Life. And that's good. But it's the Lloyd program and a lot of other programs take it up a notch. And, they were the ones that probably impressed upon me that you're going to find your next job more than likely through who you know, not necessarily by submitting your application or resume through the website. And that, again, is how I've gotten a lot of these interviews, just by someone I know who knows someone. I give them a call, and they are able to get me an interview. They won't be able to get me a job, but they're able to get me an interview at a company that I want to have an interview or potentially work at. Yeah, that was a great program. If anyone's curious, they only do it twice a year, and there's a bit of an application. But if you're transitioning, I highly recommend looking up the Deloitte CORE program.
Right, and it was right in Dallas. I mean, beautiful campus. It was like a dream. I was like, how? I was like, this is unreal.
It was amazing. Yeah, it's like you stay at a hotel and you get free meals.
Right.
It's only for a week. Or at least when I went there, it was for a week.
Yeah.
I did not know companies built these places. They call it their Deloitte University or their campus. Right. I didn't know they built these places. They're not making money off it. It's solely, or making direct money off it, solely to educate other people, to educate their contractors, and to host volunteer events like the one I participated in. But yeah, man, that was beautiful.
Right. I was like, man, this is insane. Like, how do people live like this?
Right. This is what I want. So how do I get here?
Right. Exactly. So like, when you were working at Uber, what do you think are some key takeaways from that experience, and two, how do you think your skills from the military transitioned into or transferred into your job at Uber?
Well, I will say that at least for me, it was a bit of a difference. Maybe someone who works in IT in the military service maybe would have been a little more comfortable. But the key takeaway for me is that I was a little uncomfortable doing this Uber internship, and that was by design. The military kind of gives you a task, a job to do, and your resources and the time limit, and they tell you to execute. Where here, at least at my position, my internship with Uber, it was a lot of, okay, so learn all you can about this service or organization, and now figure out how we can improve upon it or make a recommendation for a program to improve yourself. So that was a bit of a mental shift in my thought process.
Right.
Being out of the military, and this, everyone says this, but once you get out, it requires a lot more self-discipline. You need to, continue working out in the military. At least for me, I was told I was going to work out five days a week from 6:30 to 7:30 or 6:30 to 7:45 every day.
Right.
And that's what I've been doing for the past 8 years. And now all of a sudden I had that gap in my mornings, but I still need to work out if I don't want to, become unhealthy. And so same thing with working with a private company like Uber. It requires a lot of self-discipline. It requires you to want to seek out opportunities for you to display your strengths. And that's probably where a lot of military service members will have a little bit of a leg up, because I think we're taught initiative. If you see a problem, go fix that, find a solution and go fix that problem.
Right.
And big companies like Uber and others value that. They also, you could potentially have to brief some very high-ranking people or talk to some people who, frankly, are smarter than, at least were smarter than I was. And so you need to be able to gather a lot of information very quickly, internalize it, and be able to coherently give it to other people, give it back to other people so that they can successfully do their jobs. And I think we also do that, in the military. A lot of people are required to very quickly process information and then give it up to, or give it to other people very quickly.
Right.
But a bit of a change was it's a tech company, and they use a lot of different terminology that I just was not familiar with, and I had to learn. And on the other point, I continue to use military terminology for a lot of things, and they became very confused. I can't remember the number. Can't remember the times that I respond "hua" to when someone asks me to do something. It's just been ingrained in my psyche.
Right.
And so you have to be very. I was constant. There are other people who are also doing these internships with me at Uber, so I was consistently messaging them saying, "Hey, do civilians use this term, or do they know what this means?" If I put it in an email.
Right.
So it was a very uncomfortable experience, but I mean that in no way that it was negative. It was a great way for me to experience civilian life in a civilian private company while still getting paid by the military. And if I had wanted to, I could have interviewed for some roles there. Like I said, some other opportunities opened themselves to me that I want to take advantage of instead.
Right. That's awesome, man. So do you think you're going to move out to San Francisco, or are you going to keep it local in the South?
Yeah, like I said, I've been moving my entire life. People always ask me that in these interviews I'm doing. It's like, hey, where do you want to live? And I've been told I shouldn't give this answer, but frankly, I know, frankly, I don't care where I live. I'll go where the opportunity fits me, and that won't be the answer for everybody. But my family is spread throughout the continental U.S., and so I don't have a hometown to return to.
That's awesome.
San Francisco was great. I love San Francisco. Lived downtown for a little bit, and it's a great walk-in city, so I wouldn't mind going back there. But frankly, my last duty station was Hawaii, and everyone says, "Oh, you're so lucky. Hawaii's great." Hawaii was great, but it's a $1,000 round trip plane ticket whenever I wanted to go home to see family. And after 3 years, I kind of got a little constricted because I like to travel, and it was very hard to travel. At least for me, a lot of people love it, but my perspective is Hawaii became a little constrictive. So I will go anywhere that's not an island, and that's particularly my answer to these interviews.
But that sounds awesome. Sounds like you have a lot of opportunities. It seems like, the world is your oyster at this point, right? Like you can pretty much do do whatever you want to do, but you've kind of created that life for yourself. It seems like you've designed it so that you do have that mobility. And I think that's like, I don't know, it's just really cool. I mean, really, really cool.
Yeah, I will tell you, but you do have to work at it. So I'm certainly on a break now, I'm visiting family compared to when I was working full time for the Army. However, I'm not just sitting around eating Cheerios and watching TV. You have to work to get your next job. So that means creating resumes, and each company you probably want to tweak your resume a little differently. Creating cover letters to when you apply to these companies, because a lot of these companies, while they might have military transition programs, might not be clear on how your military skills equate to success in their companies. And so if you create a cover letter, you can kind of explain that a little bit for each company and whatever they're looking for. So the point I'm getting at, it requires work. You have to work to find a job. It means setting up calls with mentors, doing research, creating these documents, contacting people on LinkedIn, having that stuff set up. So I do have a lot of opportunities. I will say over the last year, I've had to work at it, and I've also been very fortunate with my leadership and my family and friends who have backed me up.
Right.
I am looking forward to that next challenge. And one other point I'll bring up is that maybe a year ago, I thought I'm not sure if you have the same viewpoint, but I feel like the generation before us, or maybe two generations before us, older than us, they found when they found a company, even if they're coming out of the military, they typically work at that company for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And that is just not the case nowadays. It is understood by employees and employers that typically, this isn't always the case, but typically you will jump around. And that is very fortunate for someone coming out of the military who doesn't know what their calling is yet, because you get to go try something, and then 2 to 5 years later, you don't like it, go try something else.
Exactly.
It probably requires a lot of work from employers, but don't expect, unless you know what you want to do. And I've met a lot of people who are like that. I don't know what I want to do with my life yet, so I'm going to go try a bunch of stuff and hopefully find something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I think the main goal of this podcast, like in general, is so that people understand that there are so many opportunities out there. Like, if you want to work in finance, you can work in finance. If you want to work in tech, you can work in tech. But I think that the difference between, just like you said, the generations before us and now is that technology has created a totally different trajectory for all of us. We can learn skills that weren't even applicable to, 20, 30 years ago, professionally. Exactly. And I feel like that's the reason why we want mobility. We want to actually be happy with the job that we work for. And I'm just really glad you shed that light on it. You
hit it on the nose. And if anything, our past military service gives us a leg up, because it's a common set of skills. It's selfless service, it's discipline, it's all those things that you don't put on a resume, but most people know. Anyone who's honorably discharged from the military will have, and those are applicable at almost any industry or company. And while it might not be there's a lot of tech jobs out there that require a lot of skills, but you could go work in management or some other job in that same company and slowly transition into the industry you want. So, if anything, our military service really helps with us being able to jump around to a few other companies.
Right. And so in your experience, did you see kind of a few different vantage points as far as what people thought their trajectory would be like when they were getting out? For example, like when I was getting out, I was at a pilot training base. So my TAPS class had probably like 80% pilots, and they were captains just like getting out. And they knew that they were typically going to go to work for Delta or American Airlines or something to continue flying. But then like most of the enlisted guys getting out, they were kind of like, man, I don't know. Some of us were going to school. Some of us were going to, work at their dad's, business or something like that. Did you see kind of a gap in between what people's expectations were when they were getting out?
Yeah, I did. I'm thinking back right now. So I had some friends who got out before I did, both enlisted and officer, that they knew very specifically what they wanted to do. They were going to go to law school. They were going to go to their MBA and they work for this company. But I think the majority of people, including myself, they just didn't know. And I caution people with saying, well, I'm going to go back to school. Or I'm going to go to school for the first time and get a degree. A degree is very important. Yeah. I don't know if that is the only option for a lot of people. So that's a tough one. I couldn't give you a definite answer with what people favored, but I saw that a bunch with it too. Just people knew that they were happy with their service, but didn't want to continue it, but then didn't really have a plan set up.
Right. Yeah, I totally understand that. So, before we jump from this call, I definitely wanted to ask you one last question. And that's, if there's one or two pieces of advice you'd give anyone getting out, I mean, burning pieces of advice that you could have, what do you think that would be?
Well, I'd say the biggest piece of advice that I haven't already mentioned would be have a plan when you get out. Even if your plan is to figure out what you're, to get to interview for jobs.
Right.
As a commander, I had a lot of soldiers who were getting out. I had served, 4, 8, or 12 years, but when I asked them what they're going to do, they said, I'm going to go back home for a little bit. And this isn't just exclusive to enlisted. I mean, officers, I had some platoon leaders and fellow captains who just said, we're going to do, they didn't really know what they're going to do. Like, typically the answer was, I'm either going to go to school, or I'm going to go back home, like you said, and work in my father or my family member's business, which is not necessarily a wrong answer, but have a plan. Don't think you're going to have more time on your hands when you are done with your service and no longer get paid. Because like I mentioned, at least for me, these interviews for some of these companies take some time, or for whatever you're going to do, even if it's a smaller business, they might have an opening 6 months from now, but you're not going to be able to start for a few months. So have a plan in place is probably my number one. Know what you're going to do, and then we all deserve a bit of a rest after our military service, but don't rest too much, because you got to set yourself up for success for your future career, and that requires a lot of work. That would be my number one piece of advice. Anything else? And then probably it's who you know. Have a big network of mentors for your family, because who you know will introduce you to opportunities. They'll come across it. You're only one man or one woman, and you're only able to read or listen to so many, podcasts or good advice, but maybe a family member or a friend who might listen or happen to catch something in another document or another piece of media that you just don't see or hear, will know that you're leaving, and will direct your attention to it. So the more people you know, the wider your field for finding great opportunities. Stuff like the DoD Skill Bridge. When I was told about this thing, that I could go intern for the last few months of my career at a company, I thought someone was pulling my leg. I did not believe it. It was too good to be true.
Right.
But I was actually, that was the second time. It was the second time I was told about this program. The first time I literally said, that's not. I either said, that's cool, but they're not really. I won't be able to do it, or I thought the guy was pulling my leg, and it took someone else to tell me, hey, you really should look into this. You need to. Okay, I'll look into it, and that was all because I had a great, I had mentors who were looking out for me. Big mentor network will definitely set you up for success.
Wow, Thomas, man, I really appreciate that word of advice. You're dropping some value bombs, man.
My pleasure.
And I thanks for your service and thanks for everything. Thanks for being on the call. Just thank you. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a really good day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me and let me give my experience. I don't know, you can edit this out if it's improper, but if anyone does want to reach out to me for advice, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. Again, Thomas, Thomas, last name Hood, Hood. And Robert, you too. If you ever want to have another future conversation about something specific or transition program, I'm more than happy to talk.
Thanks, Thomas, and I hope you have a good day and enjoy your family out there.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. You have a good one too.
Thank you. Bye.